I never knew someone my age could own property. I thought that was for the rich and famous.
Welcome back, investor, to another episode of the Passive Income Adventures. We got Leka Devatha in the house today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Leka.
Thanks so much for having me, Emma. This is so fun, and I'm glad we were able to do this. I know it's a long time coming.
Yeah, I know. I think we've met in person a couple of times now at various conferences, and it's one of those
Yeah.
things where we run into each other. I'm like, yeah, my podcast. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do it. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story because I feel like it's one of those situations where I know you really well from your social posts,
Yeah.
but I don't know anything deeper beyond some of those stories in your podcasting and things like that. So, really want to just jump right into the nitty gritty of it. You are a first time listener and you don't know who Leka is, just go check her out on social media. You could podcast stalk her by typing her name into whatever you like to use for your podcast on Spotify or iTunes and just go do a deep dive into Leka's career in real estate investing. It's been very impressive. And you've also really just helped change a lot of lives by getting your message out there. So I want to be one of those places where you can share your voice and inspire people to just take more control over their financial future.
Oh, yeah. I thank you so much. So much of what I do is now about giving back to the community and helping people and continue to do. So, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So basically, what we do on the show is we just tell stories about our passive income adventures. So, would love to hear your origin story, how you got started, your Wonder Woman story, what brought you into this. I know you have been coming into this career and are now full time. Tell me where you started, how you found out about this, and some of the pivots that you made that you were like, I think I need to move in a new direction in my life.
Yeah. So, I moved to the country about 18 years ago. I grew up in
Mhm.
India. And when I moved here, I started working at Nordstrom Corporate for a good like 7, 8 years and realized that it was just, I just kept doing the same thing over and over again. And I was like, this is not giving me any kind of job satisfaction, no financial satisfaction. Like, I have to take charge and do something else. And so that kind of led me on this path of discovery. What is that something else? What should I be doing? And literally on my way to work one day, I heard a radio ad for a real estate flipping company. And I was like, really shocked to hear that there's something like that existed here, where you could take an old house, you could fix it up and then sell it for a profit. And so I started to get really intrigued and started diving deep. And that's how I bought my very first house to flip. But I also wanted to commit to this 100%. And so I quit my job, then started investing in real estate. So I bought my first house to flip. That was 10 years ago. And since then, I've flipped 100 plus homes here in the greater Seattle market. And all of my homes are more very studs out, involved renovations. They're not cosmetic because that's just become my niche. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I started doing that and that pivoted to so many different opportunities. Land subdivisions, owning rentals. I never knew someone my age could own property. I thought that was for the rich and famous and it was mostly for men. And just doing this showed me so many things about life and just how you can achieve anything you want to as long as you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by what you're saying there because when you're talking about like mostly men, not women your age, are being able to own so many rental properties. And I think that one of the traps that I certainly got caught into because I didn't start investing until I was in my 40s. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, what took me
Right.
so long? But I think I just got trapped into the thinking like, oh, I know how to buy a single family home because we bought our own single family homes we built from scratch and we had done this big remodel, but we only knew financing by single family, private owner occupied. And that lending situation, I think, really clouded us to the possibilities out there of getting more creative because I couldn't own this many rentals if I had to use my own money. So it's not only just better bank products, better financing products, seller financing, creative financing, but also working with investors to be able to fund my projects. And when I was able to get with people who are being more creative, I realized, oh, the single family owner occupied or even a rental home through your local bank is just really not a good solution to scaling a portfolio. So, what do you feel like was the big thing that unlocked that for you when you were like, oh, I can own a bunch of houses?
Yeah, I think it was the ability to scale. And like you said, I'm also in a very expensive market. So I can't use only my capital to go do
Mhm.
more deals. So, first, I think it comes from actually doing your own deals and gaining that experience. Once you have that experience, it's about going out and raising capital from other investors or other people in the community because you have a track record to show them. The one thing that I take very seriously is raising other people's money because for me, I don't want to ever make someone a loss. And I never have in 10 years. And so once you have those two, which is stabilizing properties yourself and then the ability to raise capital, you can put that together. And then I think you can just do so much with it, whether it's syndicating apartments, owning commercial real estate, fix and flips, long term burrs, buy and holds, short term rentals, event spaces. Like I do it all. And it's just so fun. I love anything to do with stabilizing properties and just finding those little tools to add to your toolkit, I think is going to help you really get far.
Yeah, it's made a huge difference in our lives, and I credit the people who took us into this world and helped us completely retire from corporate. We're basically full-time entrepreneur investors right now, and it was a huge shift just in a very short period of time. What really got me into were the capital raisers, the salespeople, basically, who were trying to have
Yeah.
us come invest in them, and they would spend time inviting us to events, talking to us on the phone, educating us, hooking up with resources, making those introductions, and just being like the good salesperson who's actually listening to you, what your needs are, and just hooking you up with resources, hoping that some of that will reflect back on them. Then maybe I'll invest in one of their deals one day. And I'm looking at that now and thinking like, wow, capital raiser salespeople basically have changed my life. So can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your own investors and how it that becomes a relationship where you're now able to pay it forward and change their lives in a way that benefits both of you. Because some people think it's a little sneaky or motive or salesy, and people don't feel comfortable raising capital because they have all these kind of thoughts about what sales looks like. But man, if people hadn't gone out there and basically tried to sell me something, I would be in a very different place than I am right now.
Yeah, the way that I raise capital is a little bit different than I think most people because what I do is I try and add value. So the way I bring on new investors is say I have a project, a fix and flip project, and I need the bridge financing. That's when I bring in an investor and say, "Hey, I'm going to teach you everything I know and then you're going to invest in my property and not only are you going to learn but you're also going to make a significant profit back." And so I think it's a really win situation for someone that's never flipped a house or never invested in real estate to come along for the journey, first thing. And then secondly, to learn from someone that has so much experience doing this, but then also they're not paying for a course. They're not paying 25, 50 grand for a course. And instead, they're investing the money where they can actually make a profit. I always find these partnerships, which is beneficial for both. So that's how I started raising capital, and that's how I primarily raise capital to this day. I do also have a fund, and I do also syndicate apartment buildings. So there's also some of that. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of capital raising is relational and relationship based. And I know I just am a little bit different in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. The relationship, it doesn't happen with it. Even the fund you're talking about raising money for larger commercial projects, especially the first time somebody invests with us, unless they're very experienced in other syndication and they know exactly what they're looking for. Sometimes they just come in and they're easy, but especially for newer investors or people who may have invested a few times, but it's their first time with us, it has to be very relationship based because we have to make sure that we actually solve the problem that they have. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious though, what you think about somebody who is coming in and listening to this podcast. Like our biggest demographic is actually Gen Z in that kind of
Yeah.
18 to 30 range. And they'll often reach out to me like, oh, I like listening, but I don't have any money because we're really aimed more at Gen X listeners who have some income from a job or a business to be able to invest passively. But I also often hear from these Gen Zers who are like, oh, I'd love to get into this, but I don't have any money or I'm not a accredited investor. But then they'll say, what do you think about this coaching program that's 20 grand or 30 grand? And I'm like, how do you have money for coaching program if you don't have money to go invest? And they're like, oh, I have to put it on a credit card. So can I speak to that Gen Z listener who'd like to get into this a little bit more of a mentorship side and they don't know what to do because they feel like they don't have any money?
Okay, I love that you asked me this because I literally just posted about how one Gen Zer not only reached out to me, he stood out and I started working with him. And now he is so successful in what he does. And he came with zero money, no money at all. Here he is just on this massive path for success. So I want to break it down for you. So I appeared on the Bigger Pockets podcast in 2020, and thousands of people reached out to me. When they reached out to me, it was always like, hey, what do I do? I have no money. Or will you help me find a deal? Or will you help me do this or that? Whatever. One person, just like one person said, you know what? I don't want anything from you. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to help you achieve your goals. And I was like, wait, that
Mhm.
caught my attention. And so I continued to read posts, and he basically had built me a bot to scrub the internet for multifamily deals in the Seattle market that fit within my criteria and send them directly to my inbox. He didn't spend any
Wow.
money. He didn't even spend much time. And he just, it was all skill. And it was the attitude that he had that I just want to provide her with value because I really enjoy what she's doing. And he didn't even live in my city at that time, but he was moving to Seattle. So I was like, I want to get a cup of coffee with you. And he was 21 years old. And so we ended up getting coffee. And I came back and I was like, wow, that was the best coffee of my life. Although he had nothing to offer me, I just saw so much potential. And since then, he has been underwriting deals for me. He helps me capital raise. He helps me structure deals. He's helped me syndicate a property, refinance a property. And through that course of our relationship, I've helped him find contractors, properties, introduced him to some of the best people in the industry. Like, here's a funny story. He had heard 300 Bigger Pockets podcast episodes and was a huge fan of Brandon Turner's. And Brandon's a good friend of mine. I not only introduced Brandon to him, but then that night we were going to dinner and I made him sit in the back with Brandon, like squished in a car. And he was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. So you Gen Zers, okay, this is my advice to you is the best thing that ever happened to you is the fact that you don't have money today. So use everything that you have. Use your potential to the best of your ability to go add value to people that are really doing it in your industry. Trust me, everybody needs help. Like everybody, even people that have a 40% or a 400% team, they still need help in some aspect of their lives. It could be social media, it could be taking photos, it could be new ideas and thoughts and or technology or keeping up with AI or whatever it is. Go do that. Go help someone and soon that's going to pay it forward 100 times over.
Yeah, it's such good advice because especially what you said, like after Bigger Pockets, you'll have thousands of people reach out to you. And when only one or a few people stand out from the crowd, it's because they're doing something different and they're not coming and asking you for something. They're saying, here's what I want to do for you. Again, like those capital raisers, they're hoping some of that reflects back onto them just by putting that help out into the world and paying it forward and knowing that this is the way the world goes around, that networking is what helps. Such a good story, but it also applies to or Gen Z, more professional, like high income earner investor, because oftentimes they're coming in and they're very lost and confused and nervous because they do have a lot of money and there's that kind of fear of loss that they're having that maybe a younger person doesn't have.
Right.
How do you work with your investors who are maybe at that level? They own a successful business. They really don't want to have their own flips or rentals, or they just say, I just want you to send me my check in the mail. They're actually much less common from my experience. People who want to be truly passive. How do you help people get into that mindset so they're not so afraid to lose money?
I think you help them start slow. Like a lot of my investors only invest like 50K for the first time.
Hmm.
And then when they see, oh, yeah, you know what? I always get paid my interest payments on time, or I always get my principal and interest back like on time by the date that it's due. When they consistently see that, they get more and more confident. Like I had one investor that probably invested for the first time, he invested 100K. Then the next time he invested 200K. And then he invested 350K. So it's more gradual, but as long as you can show them. And then the other thing too is they want to see you on social media. They want to see what you're working on. They
Hmm.
don't want you to just fall off the face of earth and say, oh my gosh, like I gave her all this money. What is she doing with it? So when my investors see that I am like constantly out there putting out content. I just bought this property. I'm fixing up this property. I'm dealing with this issue. Even if it's something bad, like I just had a squatter issue, but I just got so much love for that because it could happen to anybody. And I had to deal with that. And it's challenging, it's difficult, but I dealt with it. And so, like, when people see that you are a real person going through real challenges and still making it work, and because you're putting in that hard work and effort to make even your losses a success, then they're more willing to, I think, just be part of your journey.
Yeah, and the comment that you made about being on social media, it's almost like an investor relations newsletter where they're following along with what you're doing. I've heard a quote recently that reminds me of what you just said, where it's like marketing is not about getting new customers. It's about making your current customers feel really good about working with you because then they'll give word of mouth referrals, which is where the best and the most, honestly, the most money and the best business comes from that word of mouth. And so using that social media presence as a way to just reinforce the relationships that you have as extra communications. And it's different when it comes in an email versus when they're seeing you online. Because online they're like, oh, it's in a like a lowercase c celebrity there, and I know her. I'm one of her
Yeah.
investors, and it's very different in a private email. So, can you talk about your social media presence, how you have been able to grow that? Because a lot of people are able to raise a lot of money for through social media, but when they get started, sometimes they're not doing it right or they have the wrong idea. They're trying to do it as lead generation when really it should be more like referral generation. Talk to me a little bit about your social media part of your business.
My social media is funny because it's truly what I'm feeling that day. It is
Mhm.
always about being authentic and putting out content that sometimes it doesn't align with yesterday's content or tomorrow's content, but it's what I'm truly doing today. And so, as long as you can be consistent, right? That you're posting regularly and then you are being super authentic, I think that's what people want to see. People want to see it's great. Like, a lot of people have great social media where they have one format of videos or they're talking about one specific topic, which is also amazing. But my social media is like my life. It's about my travel, it's about the projects that I'm doing, it's about the struggles that I'm having, cool ideas I'm having. So it's just really, I'm like an open book on my social media. And I think, although I have probably more followers on Instagram, whatever, but I think LinkedIn for me is a really special social media platform because everyone's there to work, to network, and it's a lot of high income earners that just have visibility into your social media. So I feel like taking that seriously is huge for me. I even coach a lot of my younger investors and people younger, just Gen Zers that I speak to, go build that LinkedIn presence sooner rather than later. And also, LinkedIn takes a while for you to get traction. In the beginning, like, I think four people would like my posts, or maybe nobody. It takes time to develop that community, to get that engagement. But honestly, I think it's one of the best platforms and it's so underrated.
Yeah, definitely. I think Gary Vaynerchuk puts Facebook Reels and LinkedIn as the most underrated attention and where it's still easy to get in on the ground floor. I felt like I missed the boat on LinkedIn even 3 years ago when I first started. I was like, oh man, I'm not where so and so is. This has already taken off, and I wasn't even paying attention. But it was really in early days when I first started getting into it, and I've raised most of the money that I've raised has been through people that I met on LinkedIn, right? And so again, that's where I'm finding them. So that's where I want to continue to re-engage with them because my investors and my colleagues are the ones who like and comment on my posts, not so much new investors. They're just watching. They're just watching and maybe they'll send me a DM or put a link on my calendar. But for me, I really just want my existing investors to tell their friends about it. And what do you say about what we're seeing, like almost a reverse influencer thing that we're seeing going on right now, where people are like, oh, they're just because they are a good writer on social media or because they make compelling videos, that doesn't necessarily mean that I should invest with them. And so it's almost like a backlash to say, oh, just because they're social media famous, I don't trust them automatically. Are you seeing a little bit of that? Is that growing? Because my philosophy has always been like, whatever, more people are attracted to it than repelled by it. I'm not going to worry about it. But I've started noticing a little uptick. So have you put any kind of thought or effort into reestablishing kind of credibility?
I think it's so dependent on the type of content that is being put out there. Like, for me, the content that I put is truly, the problem is that I don't honestly have time to do as much social media as I should probably do because I'm
Yeah.
such an active operator in the business. That is my full-time job. It is not social media. And oftentimes people make social media their full-time job, sprinkled with a few projects every few years so that they can support their social media. Now that is scary for me because I have been in
I
rooms or on panels or in conferences where I can see people on stage. They haven't done a project in the last 2 years, but their social media is robust, millions of followers. Now that is scary to me because if you don't have the practical knowledge and you're putting out there that you are an expert in that business, then you have all these people following you and trying to be like you, like that for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a big no. For me, like if someone wants to come, like I just a couple of days ago, I had a walkthrough at one of my projects and literally I had 100 people come in to one of my massive fix and flips. We
mhm.
walk the main floor, we walk the upstairs, and the whole house is under framing right now. So they get to see the guts of a giant, like 350K renovation project. And no one can take that away from me. That's what I do. And that's my work. And then they can see the before, they can see the in between, and then they can see the after. And so I think if you are really putting the work behind what you're putting out on social media, you're fine. Nothing to worry about. But then if you're creating amazing content, and really if someone says, "Hey, can I come walk one of your projects?" And you're like, "I don't really have any projects because I the last project it was 2017." That's a problem.
Yeah, I sell coaching for a living now, type of social media, because this stuff, it gets outdated pretty quickly. And it's not just construction technology, but the options for financing, the network changes. If you get out of the scene, you have to get back into it. It takes a while to ramp it up. So that's one thing you do really well is you show what you're actually doing. Like you said, it's like authenticity, but also what's going on today. One that caught my attention recently was you're talking about your squatter problem in Seattle. Now, I grew up in Seattle. I was born in Seattle. I graduated from Kentwood High School in
Right.
1994.
Well did.
I would never invest in Washington. So tell me about investing where you live versus investing out of state, because you're one of the few investors that I know, because I know a lot of investors in Seattle, right? I grew up there. You're one of the few that I know that are really making a go of it, an expensive market, but also a more tenant friendly market. So talk to me about how you made that decision and how you balance the risks versus the rewards in that kind of market.
You know, when people say investing out of state is the best way to invest because it's out of state, so out of sight, out of mind, that is actually really
Mhm.
super scary because if it's out of sight, out of mind, then I, it is just out of sight, out of mind. So I want to be investing where I live. I want to be boots on the ground because that's where I can have the most impact. If there's a problem, I can get my contractors out there. If there's a squatter, I can work with the city that I know
Right.
I've built a network in to go tackle that issue that day. But I can't do that if I'm sitting in Seattle and investing in Raleigh. So I just think it's huge for me to invest where I live. Now, having said that, this city has changed so much over the years. Like it has only grown and gotten more expensive, but
Yeah.
I've grown with it. So I used to buy houses here for 300 or 350K. I would fix it up. It would sell for 550. Great. Then that became 750. That became 900. And now it's 1.2 million. So like your average deal costs and deal sizes keep growing. But as long as you're growing with it, I think the sticker shock is not there. But I do understand. Like if someone's just moving to Seattle and they want to invest in real estate, like this is not because it's a lot of risk. And if you get one thing wrong, like I have a project where my architect completely messed up, and that project cost me 10 grand a month in holding costs. And I spent 6 months holding on to it without anything ever happening to the project. Again, I was able to recognize that because I'm boots on the ground. And so I was immediately able to find a different architect and fix that problem. So I actually love investing here. I know the market. I even know houses on the different streets. And because I know this market so well and I work here so much, I know how it is. Like when you buy a house to fix up or an apartment building, you get to know that neighborhood really well. What's
Yeah.
selling, what's
Mhm.
not, what streets have water views, what streets don't have water views. So once you understand that, and you also know your market cycle and timing, then it just automatically becomes easier. And I feel
Yeah.
like more people
Okay.
develop a niche.
Yeah. having a farm that you can even when I get into a new market that's not where I live, I go spend time there and develop like a
Right.
sense, like you said, for what things are. And I remember my first kind of awareness of this. My mom, when I was a teenager, we were driving through Lake Wilderness Golf Course, and there were a bunch of new houses being built. They're old now, right?
Yeah.
But she was driving by, and can you believe they're asking $100,000 for those houses? Who would pay that? And I was like, $100,000 for a house must be a lot, right? Because these were fancy golf course houses that backed up to Lake Wilderness on one side and the golf course on the other. And so it's just that early memory. And I just laugh now because those houses are probably $2 million. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look it up. But it's grown so fast and gotten so expensive. So I was even living there as a young adult. It to me, that's one thing that makes you stand out though, because you're not just another syndicator buying more properties in the Sun Belt or Texas,
Yeah.
right? It's like everybody thinks when they think Seattle, they think you. And so that niche is actually one of your positives that you're not just another faceless, nameless kind of let's syndicate something in Texas. Do you find that helps you?
Hugely. Like I just
Yeah.
sold someone $2 million property because when they said to people that we're moving to Seattle, everyone said, "Oh my God, you need to go find Leka." And she's the person to know and to meet. We met for coffee, and a couple months after that, I sold him a $2 million property. So it really helps to put myself out there and say, okay, I live in Seattle, I work in Seattle, I know the Seattle real estate market. And it's so fun too. It's so fun to sell people properties they never thought that they could find or work on. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Next time I'm in Seattle visiting my family, we definitely need to make sure that I get to go walk one of your properties. We'll just wrap it up real quick. I'll let you know next time I'm in Seattle visiting my family. So, because I would love to come and walk one of your projects and see what you got going on there because it's just never really been a market. Having grown up there, I was like, oh, it's not a market that I've looked at. But I had just so many friends and family members, even that have made so much money on real estate in Seattle that maybe I ought to take a second look at it because I don't want to walk away from that history and that knowledge of the location that I have of very few other places.
When you're here, I'd love to take you up to lunch, show you some properties, and just have fun.
We were there last summer for just a couple of days. We were supposed to be there for a couple of weeks, and I had so much stuff planned and meeting investors and hooking up, but we had a lot of problems getting out there. And so when
Oh,
we got out there, well, it was just a few days, kind of wave passed through. I wasn't even able to see my sister at her house. She had to come visit with my friend. It was a disaster. We're just in and out real quick, but we have a longer trip planned to go back, hopefully sometime soon, because my
uh,
kids really love that area. So how do people get a hold of you? And I always ask everybody on the show, why should people get a hold of you? What is the kind of person that you want to talk to after this episode airs?
love talking to people that want to invest in real estate, that are excited about real estate, that want to learn about real estate. And because I'm not like a one trick pony and I've done so many different kinds of exits and property stabilizations, that's something I love to teach people. So if you're that kind of person that even if you just want to passively invest, but you want to have access to a plethora of different kinds of deals, then hit me up for sure. You can reach me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best way. Or I also am on Instagram and it's just my first and last name.
Yeah, and I will attest we had a little bit of my mistake this morning. I was in the wrong recording studio and I'm like, "Oh, where'd she go?" So I just shot you a message over on LinkedIn and it was the wrong link because I was in the wrong room. So you had two different links and you popped right into the room that I was in. And you're like, "Damn." And I thought, "Okay, I'm really glad I sent you that message on
Yeah,
LinkedIn so that and you responded so quickly and you're right there." So for me, that's a great way to get a hold of me as well because I live and die in those LinkedIn DMs. It's really a huge part
I love that.
of our business. Yeah, that's the tip right there. That's worth the price of admission they just paid today. Spend some time on LinkedIn, get to know people, be in the DMs, check it. If you're in business for anything, like that's where it's happening right now. Like one last question before we wrap it up. Where are you going from here? Because a lot of the people that I talked to, once they got out of the first rat race of their job, find themselves caught up in like rat race 2.0 in their business and that their struggle to find more passive income because they thought rental income was going to be passive and it's not.
And it's not
It's
at
running a
all.
business. So, girl, where do you go from here in your own passive income journey? Because you love your business, you want to run your business, but we're all kind of thinking 10 years down the road because we're investors and that's how our minds work. How do you see your own passive income journey evolving over the next 10 years?
I think I do want to do something truly passive, which may be just finding a really good fund to invest my money into, maybe reversing the whole process and investing in more stocks, which is truly passive. stuff like that, and just to more diverse income is, I think, the goals. And
Mhm.
as I start, like, honestly coaching more people, I'm hoping to do more real estate sales as a broker. I never advertise myself as a broker because I forget sometimes that I'm a broker. But I love selling deals. I love negotiations and finding these little gems of properties for my investors. So I feel like doing more of that is going to give me so much joy.
Yeah, I'm definitely more transactional now than I used to be because it used to be like, oh, I don't want to sell any of these properties. I got to keep them all as rentals, long term appreciation, all that long term wealth building. That's true. But at a certain point, it becomes a grind. And so I'm actually really enjoying more of the transactional stuff, the short term lending and things like that that I'm doing because,
Yeah.
like you said, it evens out the income stream. And for me, it's sometimes just not own a project long term, just to be able to walk away and do something else. So it's that magic combination between earning a good income actively and then being a true limited partner, like you said, in the stock market or a fund where you literally just do your due diligence, put your money in, walk away, mailbox money. Like I think that's the goal most people are at, which is why most of our investors are professionals earning high income at their job
Yep.
and then being truly passive on the side. And I think they're my heroes. I'm watching what they're doing. I'm like, I need to get more into what my investors are doing.
Exactly. Let someone else go grind it out.
Exactly, and we just get to grind it out on the stuff that we really love doing because we don't have to worry about that irregular income and strangeness that we get. So I really appreciate your insights coming in and talking to us about investors, what you do, how to pick a market, how to do social right with authenticity and
Yeah.
paying attention to it and letting it work for you. A lot of really good insights, great tips, and really enjoyed just getting to reconnect with you a little bit and looking forward to when we can see each other in person again.
Yeah. Come to Seattle.
Yeah, definitely. So you want to hook up with us, LinkedIn, Emma Powell on LinkedIn, Emma Powell 28 on Instagram, or you can jump on my calendar at investwithemma.com or join my free weekly club that meets every Monday night at riseclubcapital.com, where all we do is just look at deals and find people that we want to invest passively with because this is a lot of work. So thank you again, Leka.
Thanks, Emma.
Till next time.
See ya. Bye.